may not be acceptable to another. It's best to read what others are saying for a while before you join in. Hanging around like this is called lurking. Remember, lurking is good.
Looking for a fast way to track what's moving online right now? Head over to Qnotables.com. It's a centralized index of notable clips, headlines, and references being shared across the community, organized for quick browsing. Use it to spot patterns, pull links, and build your own research list. Qnotables.com. Browse the notables, verify the facts, stay informed. All reports can be found on Q Research or Qnotables.com. Notables do not equal endorsements. We are researchers who deal in open source information, reasoned argument, and dank memes. We do battle in the sphere of ideas, and ideas only. We neither need nor condone the use of force in our work here. From the Q Research Boards. Department of Homeland Security says Coast Guard seized motor tanker Sentries in a lightning boarding operation. The Department of Homeland Security says the U.S. Coast Guard, working with federal partners, seized the motor tanker Sentries in what DHS described as a rapid lightning strike boarding operation. Officials say the vessel was suspected of involvement in sanctions-related oil transport tied to Venezuela. The seizure is part of a broader maritime enforcement effort targeting illicit oil shipments and sanctions evasion. Point. Hegseth says Venezuela tanker blockade remains in full force. Secretary of War Pete. Hegseth says the U.S. blockade of sanctioned oil tankers departing from or bound for Venezuela remains fully in effect. He tied the continued enforcement to pressure on the Maduro regime and the recovery of what he described as stolen American assets. The statement signals ongoing interdictions and sustained maritime pressure in the region. U.S. Marines conduct live-fire deck shoot aboard USS Iwo Jima. U.S. Marines with a Maritime Special Purpose Force from the 22nd Marine Expeditionary Unit conducted a live-fire deck shoot aboard the amphibious assault ship USS Iwo Jima while operating in the Caribbean Sea. Military officials say the exercise was part of routine readiness and maritime security training to maintain combat proficiency. Rubio outlines shift away from NGO-centered foreign aid model. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said U.S. foreign aid should be tightly aligned with national interests and foreign policy goals. He signaled a move away from what he described as an entrenched NGO-driven system, emphasizing accountability and outcomes in future aid programs. NTSB issues second update on Greg Biffle plane crash investigation. The National Transportation Safety Board released a second update on its investigation into the plane crash that killed former NASCAR driver Greg Biffle and 6 others. Investigators say the aircraft attempted to return shortly after takeoff and that the investigation remains ongoing. Officials caution that no probable cause has been determined yet. Point. Department of Justice. Epstein file release sparks backlash after files removed. The Justice Department's latest release of Epstein-related files drew criticism after multiple files were removed from public access within a short time frame. The removals fueled renewed demands for transparency as critics questioned why materials were taken down and whether additional documents remain undisclosed. Department of Justice says reviews and redactions are intended to protect victims. Palantir CEO buys 3,700-acre former monastery property in Colorado. Palantir CEO Alex Karp has purchased a 3,700-acre former monastery property in Colorado for a reported $120 million. The land deal is among the largest residential purchases in state history and includes significant acreage and historic structures. The purchase is drawing attention for its size, price, and long-term land use restrictions. Point. Trump endorses Bruce Blakeman for New York Governor. President Trump endorsed Nassau County Executive Bruce Blakeman as a candidate for governor of New York following Elise Stefanik's exit from the race. The endorsement is expected to influence the Republican primary field as the 2026 election cycle begins to take shape. Trump endorses Chris Gobert in Texas congressional race. President Trump endorsed Chris Gobert in the race for Texas's 10th congressional district, calling him a strong supporter of an America First agenda. The endorsement elevates Gober's profile as primary campaigning accelerates ahead of the next election cycle. TPUSA. America Fest continues with major speakers in Arizona. Turning Point USA's America Fest continued with a full slate of speakers and panels, including appearances by Steve Bannon, Brandon Tatum, and several members of Congress. Organizers described the event as a major gathering for conservative activists, media figures, and organizers ahead of upcoming political battles. Puerto Rico labor official and others indicted in unemployment fraud case. Federal prosecutors announced indictments against a Puerto Rico Department of Labor employee and 7 others accused of participating in an unemployment insurance fraud and kickback scheme. Authorities say the case involves public corruption and hundreds of thousands of dollars in fraudulent claims. Rutgers faces backlash over seminars by Antifa Handbook author. Rutgers University is facing criticism after scheduling seminars led by the author of the book Antifa Handbook. Critics argue the seminars promote political extremism, while university officials defend the programming as part of academic discourse. The dispute has sparked petitions and calls for administrative review. Blue Origin completes New Shepard mission with accessibility milestone. Blue Origin successfully completed another New Shepard suborbital mission, marking a milestone in accessibility as a wheelchair user reached space for the first time. The brief flight crossed the recognized boundary of space before returning safely, adding to the company's growing list of commercial space missions. Point. NASA says Parker Solar Probe observed interstellar comet. NASA reports that the Parker Solar Probe observed an interstellar comet passing through the solar system, capturing rare data during its mission near the Sun. Scientists say the observations could help improve understanding of objects that originate outside our solar system. Astronomers report possible first superkilonova event. Astronomers say they may have detected the first known superkilonova, a theorized cosmic explosion combining features of a supernova and a kilonova. Researchers stress the finding is preliminary and still being evaluated against other possible explanations. USS Abraham Lincoln conducts routine flight operations. The U.S. Navy released imagery showing the aircraft carrier USS Abraham Lincoln conducting routine flight operations, including jet launches and recoveries. Navy officials say the operations demonstrate readiness and the carrier's ability to operate globally when called upon. Guantanamo Bay reports Pack-Out Day ahead of court activity. Observers at Guantanamo Bay report a pack-out day as facilities prepare for upcoming military commission proceedings. The update reflects routine logistical movement as judges and legal teams rotate in and out ahead of scheduled hearings. Tina Peters' case returns to spotlight amid political debate. The imprisonment of former Colorado election official Tina Peters has returned to national attention as supporters argue her case reflects broader concerns about election oversight and government power. Peters was convicted on charges related to unauthorized access to voting equipment and is serving a prison sentence. Online claim of suspended UK tech deal remains unverified. Claims circulating online that President Trump suspended a $40 billion US-UK technology deal over free speech concerns remain unverified. No official confirmation has been issued by US or UK authorities, and the claim has not been supported by primary government releases. Looking for a fast way to track what's moving online right now? Head over to Qnotables.com. It's a centralized index of notable clips, headlines, and references being shared across the community, organized for quick browsing. Use it to spot patterns, pull links, and build your own research list. Qnotables.com. Browse the notables, verify the facts, stay informed. All reports can be found on Q Research or Qnotables.com. Notables do not equal endorsements. We are researchers who deal in open source information, reasoned argument, and dank memes. We do battle in the sphere of ideas and ideas only. We neither need nor condone the use of force in our work here. From the Q Research Boards, U.S. launches Operation Hawkeye strike against ISIS in Syria. U.S. forces carried out large-scale retaliatory strikes in Syria, targeting more than 70 ISIS-linked sites, using aircraft and other military assets. The action follows an attack that killed 2 U.S. soldiers and a civilian interpreter and wounded additional troops. Defense leaders framed the operation as a direct response meant to degrade ISIS capability and deter future attacks on Americans. Point. Pentagon fails its annual audit for the 8th straight year. The Department of Defense failed its annual financial audit again, extending its streak to 8 consecutive failures since audits began in 2018. Officials said auditors identified major control problems and gaps in accounting systems across the department's vast network. DoD leaders say the goal remains a clean audit by 2028, but the repeated failures keep fueling scrutiny over financial accountability and tracking of assets. Trump announces most favored nation drug pricing deals with 9 companies. President Trump announced agreements with 9 major pharmaceutical companies aimed at lowering U.S. prescription drug prices by tying them to most favored nation pricing, meaning closer to the lowest prices paid in other developed countries. The White House says the plan is designed to reduce out-of-pocket costs and push industry to cut prices faster. Details will determine how broad the savings are and how quickly patients see changes. Elise Stefanik suspends New York governor campaign and won't seek re-election. Repier's Elise Stefanik announced she is suspending her campaign for New York governor and will not run for re-election to the U.S. House. Stefanik cited family priorities and argued the race would consume time and resources. Her exit reshapes the Republican field for 2026 and removes a high-profile Trump ally from Congress at the end of her current term, setting up a scramble for her seat and future political plans. DOJ charges tied to Trendiaragua ATM jackpotting scheme. Federal prosecutors announced indictments connected to a multi-million-dollar ATM jackpotting operation tied to Trendiaragua, a transnational criminal group. Authorities allege the network used coordinated crews and technical methods to force ATMs to dispense cash, then moved and laundered proceeds across states. Officials say the case is part of a broader effort to disrupt organized criminal infrastructure, including logistics, money movement, and recruitment inside the U.S. point. Chinese research visa holder charged with smuggling E. coli into the U.S. federal authorities charged a Chinese national in the U.S. on a research visa with smuggling E. coli into the country, according to public statements and reporting on the case. Investigators allege the material was brought in improperly and raised concerns about biosafety and compliance with important research rules. Trump holds rally-style remarks in Rocky Mount, North Carolina. President Trump appeared in Rocky Mount, North Carolina, delivering remarks focused on the economy and his administration's policy direction. He argued his approach is lowering costs and strengthening U.S. industry, while urging supporters to stay engaged heading into 2026 political battles. Local coverage noted mixed reactions among residents, with some citing ongoing cost pressures. The event also featured allied Republican figures and campaign-style messaging. Lawmakers press witnesses on UAP claims and government transparency. In a public exchange from a House hearing and related coverage, Representative Eric Burleson questioned a witness about claims that the Department of Defense possesses alien bodies. The witness did not provide publicly verifiable evidence in that moment, and the topic remains unproven. The hearing activity reflects ongoing congressional interest in UAP reporting standards, whistleblower protections, and what the government can responsibly disclose without compromising national security. DOJ releases first batch of Epstein investigation files. Heavily redacted, the Justice Department released an initial batch of files tied to the Jeffrey Epstein investigations under a new transparency law. But much of the material is redacted, and critics say the release is incomplete. The documents include photos and records that renew attention on Epstein's connections to influential figures. Lawmakers from both parties are already pressing DOJ to explain the redactions and to publish more unclassified material promptly. Epstein file release highlights Bill Clinton photos. No criminal allegations stated. Newly released Epstein-related files include multiple photographs showing former President Bill Clinton in Epstein's orbit, including images with Ghislaine Maxwell. The documents themselves do not accuse Clinton of a crime, and context for several images is limited or redacted. The release is driving renewed political pressure for testimony and additional disclosures, as Congress argues the public still has an incomplete picture of Epstein's network. Point. House Oversight publishes additional Epstein estate documents. The House Oversight Committee released tens of thousands of pages of additional documents obtained from the Epstein estate, adding to an expanding public record around finances, contacts, and other paperwork. Committee leaders say they're pushing for maximum lawful transparency and follow-on releases. What is already known is shocking. Ukraine claims first Mediterranean strike on Russia, Shadow Fleet tanker. Ukraine says it struck a Russia-linked Shadow Fleet oil tanker in the Mediterranean near the Libyan coast, marking a geographic expansion beyond the Black Sea. Reporting says the ship was damaged and reportedly not carrying cargo at the time, reducing immediate spill risk. Ukraine argues these tankers help fund Russia's war through sanctions evasion, while Russia signals retaliation and escalation risks remain high. Ukraine says it struck Russian oil and naval targets in the Caspian Sea. Ukraine claims it hit a Russian oil rig and a military patrol ship in the Caspian Sea using drones, a significant escalation if confirmed. Reuters reports it could not independently verify the claim, and the company tied to the oil asset has not publicly commented. Ukraine has increasingly targeted energy infrastructure, arguing it reduces Moscow's war revenue, while Russia frames such strikes as justification for further attacks. U.S. Navy tests ship-launched Shahed-style drone clone from a helideck. The U.S. Navy test launched a low-cost one-way attack drone known as Lucas from a ship's helideck, an American adaptation inspired by the widely used Iranian Shahed design. Defense reporting says the concept is meant to enable mass, affordable strike options from maritime platforms without relying on expensive missiles. The test highlights how the U.S. is studying battlefield-proven drone models and rapidly adapting them for its own doctrine. NTSB briefing updates. Greg Biffle plane crash investigation. The NTSB released early findings in the investigation into the plane crash involving NASCAR figure Greg Biffle and family, including details about the flight timeline and communications. Officials caution that the investigation is ongoing and that probable cause will take time. The next steps typically include detailed wreckage analysis, maintenance and pilot history review, and reconstruction of events leading up to impact. Point. CBP drone activity near San Angelo flagged by flight trackers. Online flight tracking accounts highlighted U.S. Customs and Border Protection MQ-9 activity near San Angelo, Texas, tied to the common Tirowai call sign used by CBP unmanned aircraft. Public tracking alone does not confirm mission purpose, but it often aligns with border security surveillance and related operations. Officials have not issued a specific public statement tied to this single tracked flight. Turning Point USA's America Fest continued with Day 2 programming in Arizona, featuring high-profile conservative speakers, panels, and media coverage. The event is increasingly treated as a major organizing hub for movement politics, messaging, and networking. Watch for speeches that preview 2026 priorities, donor strategy, and how activist groups plan to mobilize around policy fights in the new year. Point. Pro-Trump commentary amplifies deep state claims as 2026 battles loom. Commentator Lara Logan argued that entrenched bureaucracy and political insiders are trying to run out the clock on Trump's agenda heading into midterm season. Her comments reflect a broader narrative on the right about institutional resistance and slow-walking reforms. Supporters cite prior clashes with agencies and courts. Critics dispute the framing. Either way, the message is clearly aimed at keeping grassroots pressure high in 2026 races. White House issues national security memo aimed at winning the 6th G race. The White House released a new national security presidential memorandum directing multiple agencies to accelerate U.S. 6th G leadership in 6G. The administration frames 6G as critical infrastructure for economic competitiveness and national security, and it signals more coordination on spectrum, standards, and supply chains. Expect follow-on actions from the FCC, Commerce, and defense agencies as the U.S. tries to shape global 6G rules early. New orbital house of cards. Warning highlights growing satellite collision risk. A newly discussed orbital house of cards scenario warns Earth's low orbit is becoming more fragile as congestion increases. One concern, a major solar storm could disrupt collision avoidance systems, raising the odds of cascading satellite crashes in a short time window. The story adds pressure for better space traffic coordination, debris mitigation, and resilience planning as mega constellations expand. The Justice Department filed suit against officials in Fulton County, Georgia, seeking access to 2020 election-related records, including ballots and related documentation. Department of Justice argues federal law requires jurisdictions to preserve and provide access to certain election records, while county and state officials cite privacy and security concerns. This legal fight is part of a wider push by DOJ to obtain voter and election records from multiple jurisdictions. Rubio outlines foreign aid overhaul and ongoing crisis diplomacy. Secretary of State Marco Rubio gave remarks describing foreign aid as a tool of U.S. foreign policy and emphasized tighter alignment with national priorities. In recent briefings, Rubio has also focused on humanitarian access and ceasefire efforts in major conflict zones, including Sudan, and discussed international security coordination in Haiti and Gaza. Bottom line, the State Department is telegraphing a harder line on how aid is structured and who controls implementation. Guerrilla drone and mortar attack kills Colombian soldiers near Venezuela. Border Colombian authorities and international reporting say a drone and mortar attack hit a military base in northern Colombia, killing at least 6 soldiers and injuring many more. The ELN guerrilla group has been blamed in reporting and local statements. The strike underscores how drones are changing low-intensity conflict, raising both casualty risk and pressure on Colombia's security strategy in border regions. Minnesota fraud probe expands as prosecutors describe industrial-scale abusive programs. Federal prosecutors say Minnesota has been hit by unusually large fraud schemes involving social services and federally funded programs, with losses potentially reaching into the billions across multiple programs. Officials describe shell entities billing for services that were never delivered, and they say some proceeds were spent on luxury items and moved overseas. The political fallout is growing as state oversight failures and enforcement gaps come under national scrutiny. Tim Walz must be held accountable. Brown University shooting investigation hit by misinformation. Authorities say misinformation online complicated the Brown University shooting investigation, including false accusations aimed at uninvolved people. Fact-checkers and police reports indicate the wrong names spread widely before investigators identified a suspect. The episode is now being cited as a real-time example of why major incidents often produce viral false claims, and why sharing unverified suspects can do serious harm. Point. DOJ Epstein release includes baby massage pages from a general massage book. In the latest Epstein-related document dump, a section labeled Baby Massage Training appears inside a broader massage text included in the released dataset. Epstein photo set includes Clinton and Kevin Spacey pictured with Ghislaine Maxwell at Churchill War Rooms. A newly circulated photo from the Epstein file releases shows Ghislaine Maxwell with Bill Clinton and actor Kevin Spacey in London's Churchill War Rooms. Major outlets note the image is part of a broader trove documenting Epstein's social network, and it does not by itself allege criminal conduct. Still, it is adding fuel to ongoing demands for clearer timelines, more complete releases, and explanations for what remains withheld or redacted. Point. Claim circulates about an 80-minute Clinton CD seized from Epstein property. A claim is circulating online that investigators seized an 80-minute CD labeled Clinton from Epstein-related property. Looking for a fast way to track what's moving online right now? Head over to Qnotables.com. It's a centralized index of notable clips, headlines, and references being shared across the community, organized for quick browsing. Use it to spot patterns, pull links, and build your own research list. Qnotables.com. Browse the notables, verify the facts, stay informed. That's all for now. Stay alert, stay informed, and never hand your thinking over to anyone on a screen. including me. God bless you, God bless our troops, and God bless the United States of America. See you soon.
A common mistake that newcomers make is to leap into newsgroup discussions without first observing the dynamics of a particular group. What's an acceptable comment to one group may not be acceptable to another. It's best to read what others are saying for a while before you join in. Hanging around